Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we really like to kind of get our hands dirty with some really interesting stuff. And today, we're diving into audacious innovation, those like really big, bold leaps that just completely change the game.
Yeah.
And I think there's no better place to kind of explore this than in the built environment.
Right.
So we're talking cities, buildings, and the systems that kind of connect them all. And you've given us quite a collection to dig through this time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, excerpts from Building the Future. We've got some interviews with architects and tech folks.
Yeah.
Even some insights from mayors, who are grappling with these same challenges.
Yeah, they're on the front lines, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the heart of it all,
yeah,
is this story of Living Planet.
Oh, yeah.
A smart city startup with a vision so grand, kind of makes your head spin.
Well, yeah, what's captivating about Living Planet is that they weren't just trying to make a city, a little bit smarter or a little bit greener, you know? Yeah.
They were going for a total reinvention, like a city built from scratch.
Wow.
To be sustainable, technologically advanced, and frankly, unlike anything we've ever seen.
And get this, the founder, Steve Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a character straight out of a movie.
I know, right?
Ex-pro soccer player, diagnosed with leukemia, taught himself to code while he was in the hospital.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't make this stuff up. But before we get into his wild ride, I think we need to step back for a second.
Okay.
And just understand why we need audacious innovation in the first place.
Right. Why is this even a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it all boils down to like two massive trends that are happening right now.
Okay.
A growing population and a rapidly urbanizing world. So by 2050, we're looking at like 8.5 billion people on this planet, with 70% of them crammed into cities.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So think about that. We essentially need to build 10,000 new cities in the next 30 years.
10,000 new cities. Yeah. And not just any cities. They have to be sustainable and resource efficient.
So are you saying that cities are the problem and the solution?
They kind of are, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a paradox because cities consume a ton of resources and generate a lot of waste.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, they offer incredible opportunities for things like density, walkability, efficient public transport.
So it's all about finding that balance.
Exactly. Finding that delicate balance between growth and sustainability.
Okay, so that's where Living Planet comes in.
Right. They kind of burst onto the scene with this audacious plan to build a smart city in Portugal called PlanIT Valley.
PlanIT Valley.
Renewable energy integrated, waste management, cutting-edge technology woven into like every aspect of life.
Wow.
It was a truly mind-blowing concept.
Yeah.
But as we'll see, turning that vision into reality was anything but simple.
Yeah, I bet.
One of the biggest hurdles they faced was this thing called big teaming.
Big teaming.
And honestly, it's a challenge that affects anyone who's trying to achieve bold innovation. Okay. So big teaming is about bringing together different industries, each with its own way of thinking, its own priorities. It's almost like its own language.
So you're saying that getting everyone on the same page is like herding cats?
It can feel that way sometimes, yeah.
Oh, man.
Because Living Planet needed to bring IT folks, real estate developers, government officials, architects, construction crews.
It takes a village.
It does. And all these groups are like different thought worlds, And they all had to come together to make PlanIT Valley a reality.
I can only imagine.
And as you can imagine, that created a lot of friction.
Friction's good sometimes, though, right? For innovation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Diverse viewpoints are essential.
Yeah.
But when those viewpoints clash head on without any attempt at understanding or compromise, it can derail even the most brilliant idea.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And that's exactly what happened with Living Planet.
Really?
Yeah. You had real estate folks who were so focused on short-term costs and ROI, and they were clashing with the tech team who were all about pushing boundaries and disrupting the status quo.
Oh, so like a head-on collision?
Yeah, it was definitely a recipe for some tension.
Yeah.
There's this great anecdote in one of the interviews where Becky Worthington, who's a real estate developer, she famously dismissed the IT crowd by saying, playing with electrons isn't real work.
Oh, wow.
And then you had an architect, Pedro Balonis, who completely rejected an engineering firm's master plan as Too traditional.
Too traditional. What did he want?
Well, he wanted to build a hexagon-shaped city inspired by beehive.
A hexagon-shaped city.
Yeah, can you imagine?
That's why.
And even Steve Lewis, the founder, a guy known for his boundless energy and optimism.
Yeah, you said he was a character.
He found himself getting frustrated with the slow pace of traditional real estate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a quote where he even said, "Traditional real estate looks stupid. You can finance real estate by making deals."
He sounds frustrated.
Yeah, so how did Living Planet navigate this minefield of, clashing egos and all these different priorities?
Right, and did they ever even break ground on PlanIT Valley?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. But Living Planet had to figure out how to bridge these divides, right?
Yeah, how do you get all these different people with their own agendas to actually work together and build something like this?
Well, the book Building the Future, it offers some really good insights here.
Okay.
It emphasizes how important a strong shared vision is,
Right.
but one that's flexible enough to evolve as the team, learns and gathers more information.
So it's more like a guiding star, not a rigid blueprint.
Exactly. It's not about dictating every little detail up front.
Right.
It's more about creating a framework that allows for experimentation and adaptation, along the way.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess communicating that vision is just as important as the vision itself.
Oh, absolutely. And you need to bridge these knowledge gaps that exist between different industries.
Yeah, for sure. Like, how do you get a tech person and a construction worker to speak the same language?
Right. Well, the book talks about using what they call boundary objects.
Boundary objects.
Yeah, things like simple explanations, analogies, visuals that can help people from different disciplines understand each other.
So, like, I'm picturing these architects trying to explain their beehive city using a jar of honey and a handful of bees.
Well, maybe not that literal, but the idea is to find that common ground and build understanding.
Okay.
Translate complex ideas into a language that everyone can grasp.
Gotcha. But it can't just be about sharing information, right? You need to build trust and relationships too, especially with all these big personalities involved.
You're absolutely right. And Living Planet understood that.
Okay.
Remember those late night brainstorming sessions we talked about at the Hotel Central Park?
Yeah.
Those weren't just about hashing out technical details. They were about forging personal connections that actually make collaboration possible. Sometimes a shared meal or a good laugh can do more to bridge a divide than hours of meetings.
So did they pull it off? Did Living Planet overcome these big teaming challenges and start building their dream city?
Well, that's where the story takes kind of an unexpected turn.
Oh,
Remember,
yeah.
they were burning through cash trying to get this ambitious project off the ground?
Yeah, startups. They got to move fast.
They do, and as the delays mounted, they had to make a tough decision, a pivot that would change the course of the company.
A pivot, you mean they scrapped the whole PlanIT Valley idea?
Not entirely, but
No.
they shifted their focus
Right.
from building a physical city to developing what they call the Urban Operating System, or UOS for short.
The urban operating system. Okay, so what is that exactly? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Well, imagine a software platform that integrates all those smart city technologies we've been talking about, sensors, data analytics, communication systems. The UOS was meant to be like the brain of a city, optimizing everything from energy use to traffic flow, even like the shopping experience.
So instead of building the city itself,
Yeah.
they decided to build the digital infrastructure that would make any city smarter.
Right. It was a pretty bold move.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it reveals a key insight about audacious innovation. Sometimes you have to adapt your vision to survive.
Right.
Living Planet recognized that building a city from scratch was incredibly challenging,
Yeah, I can imagine.
especially given, the financial constraints and the complexities of big teaming.
So did this pivot mean they were abandoning their original dream? Was it a sign of failure?
Not at all. I see it more as a strategic evolution.
That's right.
They realized that their expertise in technology and systems integration could be applied to a wider range of projects.
Right, not just a single city.
Exactly. And this pivot actually led to some pretty impressive partnerships.
Really? Like what?
Well, they landed a deal with London City Airport
Okay.
to use the UOS to improve passenger flow and the retail experience.
Mhm.
It was a high-profile project that proved their technology could work on a real-world scale.
So they were able to get some runs on the board.
Yeah, and they also started exploring opportunities in other cities like
Yeah.
Birmingham, Copenhagen, even Brazil.
So their vision became less about building a single city and more about helping to make cities around the world smarter and more efficient.
Precisely. And while they haven't completely given up on the idea of PlanIT Valley, they've acknowledged that it's a long-term endeavor.
Okay.
So they're playing the long game while also pursuing these smaller scale projects
Right.
that can generate revenue and allow them to refine their technology.
It's a classic startup story, balancing that ambition
Yeah.
with the need to, stay afloat and adapt.
Exactly. And it really raises some interesting questions about the future of cities.
Yeah, what does this all mean for how our cities will evolve in the coming decades?
Well, that's a great question. Will we see more top-down master plan cities like PlanIT Valley, or will the future be shaped by a more bottom-up organic approach,
Mm.
with smaller innovations gradually transforming existing urban environments?
It seems like there's room for both.
Yeah, I think so too. But I'm curious to hear what you think about this whole edgeless computing concept that the book mentions.
Edgeless computing. Yeah. How does that fit into the picture?
Edgeless computing. It's a fascinating concept that ties into the future of smart cities in a really intriguing way, you see. You see, right now, most smart city technology relies on like a centralized system, kind of like a giant brain that collects and processes all the data from sensors and devices across the city.
Okay, I'm following.
But edgeless computing, it proposes a different model.
Okay.
It distributes that processing power to the edges of the network, to individual devices, buildings, even neighborhoods.
Oh, so instead of having one central control center, you'd have a network of like interconnected nodes.
Exactly.
With each with their own intelligence.
Precisely. It's kind of like the difference between a traditional power grid where electricity flows from a central plant and a distributed grid where you have multiple sources of power generation like solar panels on rooftops.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying.
So edgeless computing could make smart cities more resilient, adaptable, and responsive to the needs of individual communities.
It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But I can also see how it could be challenging to implement, like coordinating all those different nodes and ensuring they all work together seamlessly. That seems like a massive undertaking.
It definitely has its complexities, yeah, but the potential benefits are huge.
Okay, like what?
Well, think about it. A city where traffic lights automatically adjust based on real-time conditions, where buildings optimize their energy usage based on occupancy patterns, where waste management systems adapt to changing needs.
It sounds like a city that runs itself almost like a living organism.
That's a great analogy. And in a way, that's kind of what Living Planet was trying to achieve with their urban operating system.
Right, creating a system that's dynamic, responsive, and constantly learning.
Exactly.
So even though they pivoted away from building a single physical city, they're still contributing to the broader evolution of smart cities in a really meaningful way.
Absolutely. Their story, it highlights the iterative nature of innovation.
Yeah.
You start with a bold vision, you encounter challenges, you adapt, and you keep pushing forward.
And you don't always succeed right away.
Right. And even if you don't achieve your original goal in its exact form, you can still have a profound impact.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that failure isn't always a bad thing.
Right. Sometimes it's a necessary step on the path to something even greater.
Okay, so I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from Living Planet's journey.
I agree.
They weren't afraid to pivot, to experiment, to embrace the unknown.
And that's the mindset we need if we want to build a better future.
It's that spirit of audacious innovation that we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
That willingness to push boundaries,
Yeah.
challenge assumptions, and think big.
Exactly. And it's not just about technology. It's about people collaboration and the ability to bridge those divides between different ways of thinking.
Right, like those clashes we talked about between
Yeah.
the tech folks, the real estate developers, the architects.
Yeah, those conflicts, while frustrating, also highlight the importance of diversity and the need for open dialogue.
Listening to all this makes me wonder about the role of government in all of this. Can cities truly become smarter and more sustainable without strong leadership and a clear vision from policymakers?
That's a crucial question, and it's one that's being debated in cities around the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Some argue that government needs to take a more active role in shaping the future of our cities,
All right.
while others believe that innovation will happen more organically through the private sector and grassroots initiatives.
Yeah, it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It is.
But I think one thing's for sure, the future of our cities is being shaped right now.
Yeah, it's happening as we speak.
And it's up to all of us, citizens, policymakers, businesses, innovators, to engage in this conversation and work together to build a future that's sustainable, equitable, and truly livable.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey, exploring the complexities of audacious innovation, the challenges of big teaming, the evolving nature of smart cities, and the importance of embracing change.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from Living Planet's story, even if their dream city never quite materialized.
Yeah, it's a reminder that building the future is an ongoing process filled with twists and turns, successes and setbacks.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
The future is not predetermined. It's something we create together through our choices, our actions, and our unwavering belief in the power of human ingenuity.
So let's get out there and start building that future. And who knows, maybe one day we'll revisit the story of Living Planet and see how their audacious vision continues to unfold. See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.